Okay, let's tap into episode 38. Thank you for joining me on the Ask Tiara podcast, whether you're watching this on YouTube or you're listening to it on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google, Apple, wherever you listen to podcasts. I appreciate you. So, today we're going to talk about accepting people for who they are. I always talk about things that we've heard before, that we know, but we just don't do them that well, right? So we've heard, gotta accept people for who we are. And a lot of times we say we can do that and we think we're doing that, but we're not, or we're not doing it very well. And what would be an example of not doing it very well? Let's talk about relationships specifically. When you are constantly arguing or going back and forth or debating with the other person that you're in a relationship with about the things that they do that you don't like, whatever that may be. And I feel like we kind of like at the core know pretty much that those certain things that we keep arguing over aren't going to change, but we hope they do. And that's why we keep talking about them, or we keep having this internal struggle, internal and external struggle with it, because we haven't really fully accepted who they are. So let me let me unpack this. I'm gonna unpack some of this personally because just what I've learned over the years. And the reason why I'm sharing that is because how much easier accepting people for who they are has made my life. So I mean there's different stages of it, of course. Is first would be really, knowing that person. So it takes time. There's someone I know, not naming any names, they'll know when they listen to this, but I feel like when they meet someone, we're talking about relationships specifically, or even could even be family for them, but just they know what the best of what that person is capable of, and they kind of hold them to that bar, or they kind of hold on to that string of hope that that person will always function at that high level and do what they are, quote unquote, capable of. Therefore, when they don't meet that bar or that standard, that person is struggling with it. They're upset. They're kind of, going back and forth over it because they're really not accepting who that person is, which is, who is that person? That person is not who they are at their very best or what they've showed you at their very best. They are who they are consistently, right? Let me say that again. We're all capable of amazing things. I feel like I could be a heart surgeon if I really wanted to, I suppose, but I would have had to do certain things consistently in order to pull that off. Not sure if I'm capable of that, just because I don't really like blood. But anyways, that's a whole other story. But basically, what someone shows you at any point, the best of what they're capable of, that doesn't mean that that's something that they can do consistently. And what someone does consistently, us included, that's who we are, right? That's where whoever we are disciplined enough to be, that's who we are. I'm not saying that, the best of what we can do is not part of us. That's true. But who you are day in and day out, that's what we have to accept in other people. That's what other people have to accept in us. So unpacking my own, my own experiences, like I said, it's in stages. Like, I'll know how someone is. Like, let's say from the onset. And I feel like as kids, right, we're molded by our parents. And, as parents, we're molding our kids, pushing them to the next level, pushing them to reach their potential. So it's like we're not naturally from the beginning in that mode of, accepting like, hey, I'm not good at math. Your kid is not good at math, saying, okay, well, you're not good at math. Oh, well, so what? Don't worry about it. Just don't be good at it. No, we're pushing them to be better. I mean, that's a very simple example, but we're molded that way inherently from, early on. So sometimes we carry that with us into adulthood of always looking at a situation or another person, hoping that they can, push to that next level, push to that next level. I'm not saying that they can't, because some people are the type of person, some people are constantly evolving. Some people unfortunately are not. Some people are evolving at a fast rate. Some people are evolving at a slower rate in certain areas. It all depends. But you have to accept who someone is in this moment, who they are right now. I've done an episode about this before. You don't date someone's potential. You're dating who they are. And that stage of recognizing what they're capable of, recognizing what they're doing consistently and accepting that as this is who they are. And I feel like there's times that definitely, I know I've been through this in relationships. There's times that who someone is, it's like I like all of these things about them, but I don't like certain parts. So I don't want to accept those parts. I want to hope that they can be better, especially if they showed me that they can be better or they can be different. Better doesn't always mean, like better doesn't always mean it's better for them. I would say like different. I want something different from them. I will hope for that. So I kind of like will reject those parts of them that I need to accept. So that's where the struggle comes from. I hope that makes sense. I'm trying to think of a good example here. I really didn't map out any examples like I usually do. I would say, okay, we'll talk about I don't like to talk too much about, but my the love of my life right now, my forever person. He's not a person who likes to sit down and communicate and hash it out. I've said this before. Now, in the beginning of the relationship, I hoped, you know what, I'll kind of lay the path. I'll lead in love. I'll be a great communicator. I can influence him to communicate more, and I'll create this safe space where we can have these great conversations. Great conversations meaning when it's something that we're not on the same page about. And you know what? That's just not his thing. And it took me a while to accept that, because in another episode, I can't remember all the episode numbers, but in another episode, in a perfect world, the love of my life was a communicator, a great communicator, just like I am. And so it took me a while to accept the fact that that's not who he is. Are there times that we can fall into this great conversation where we're vulnerable and we're, talking about our needs and our wants? Yes. But is that something that he is prone to do consistently? No. So I had to really look at who he is, what he's capable of, but who he shows up as consistently. And I had to meet him there in order to really accept who he is. Because if I keep hoping, wishing, praying, wanting something that he is, I won't say that he's not capable of, but something that is not in his emotional wheelhouse, something that is not who he is or who he even wants to be, or a way that he wants to function consistently. That was the constant battle, because I'm asking for something that someone is not willing to give. Maybe they're not willing to give it. Maybe they don't want to give it. It's just not their style. Communication is a whole other thing. I have a lot more parts to my communication series. But meeting someone where they are is accepting who they are. We put up a whole bunch of hurdles on our own, right? All those hopes and wishes. And let me kind of backtrack. I'm not saying don't hope and wish and don't try to be a person who, leads in love or tries to help your partner evolve or pushes your partner just like you want them to do for you. I'm not saying don't do that. Like, hey, this is, I don't really subscribe by that, hey, it is what it is kind of thing. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is, in order to be successful in how you respond, react, cope with things in your relationship or in life, is accepting something for what it is. Accepting your relationship, accepting your person, accepting the status of your life, of whatever it is, of your job. I'm not saying that you have to accept that and that's it and just stay there and be uncomfortable, but accept what you're dealing with in full force so that you know how to deal with it. Because sometimes it's, you might say, if you really take a good look and cut out all that hoping and wishing and accept a person or a situation for what it is, you might find that that's something you can't live with. So instead of fighting this endless battle that, with something that you can't control, that's never going to change, once you accept it, you might decide, you know what, I need to cut my ties, or I need to cut my losses, or I need to shift, and I can't be in the same situation or with the same person. That's what kind of brings you to the reality of what the next move is or how you're going to continue. But you cannot make an informed decision if you're not accepting things for what they are. So the caveat to that is, now when I say accepting things for how they are, I don't mean when it comes to a relationship or a person, I'm not saying accept them for who they are, accept their bad behavior, and just deal with it. However, as a life coach, I have definitely said that to some people is, this person this is a terrible example, but if you're dealing with someone that is consistently like a habitual cheater or a liar, and you keep talking about it and saying, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that, but they keep doing that, like you'd still end up in the same place. So in that way, no, I don't think that you should accept behavior that you don't want. Like if you're staying in the same place, yes, you're accepting behavior that you really don't want to live in. So I'm not talking about those type of situations, but I'm talking about using myself an example. I am with someone who is not a great communicator in the way that I like to communicate. So let me throw that in there. They don't communicate the way that I communicate. Now, in the beginning, before I knew more, or before, we'll say early on in my dating years, that for me was a make or break. I need a great communicator like I am. But now I've realized that someone doesn't have to communicate the same way I do. They don't have to have the same style. The love of my life does not have the same style of communication. And I'm accepting that. I really do accept that, because I love them and because it's a choice and because it is something that I can live with, that I want to live with, because I'm accepting that person. There's just things that come along with accepting a person that maybe aren't perfect for you. But if you accept it and stop, like I said, holding on to wanting to change someone or hopes and wishes and all of that, and going through this constant struggle, you can then say, you know what? He's not a great communicator. What can I do to deal with that, to cope with that, to work with that? I don't want to say deal or cope. What can I do to work with that, to be with someone who is not as great of a communicator as I am? What can I do to make it a successful relationship in that way? And by accepting that, of course, that's how I was able to find ways to navigate that space with them. I'm going to use one more example. I have one of my clients. Her husband is he's a very punctual person. She's not super punctual, and he's also someone. They have a small child. He likes to do things together. She knows that when he has an appointment, he likes to be on time, and he likes to do all of these things together. So there was a plan one day that they were going to. They had something to do. I forget what it was. It was a while ago. It was like a COVID shot or something, and she wasn't even sure if she was going to get the shot, but he was going to get it. But the plan was they were going to drive together, and then they were going to go to lunch afterwards. She got in the shower, I guess, too close to the time, and she wasn't quite ready. So he was irritated. They got into an argument about it. And in her mind, when she was talking to me, it was like, what's the big deal? They have a small child. I got in the shower. Like I wasn't going to be on time. So I just told him to go without me and then come back. Okay. That's not a make or break situation. So that's a whole other realm. But the thing is, knowing how her partner is, when I talked to her about it, I'm like, well, you know that your husband, he wanted you to go, but moreover, he wanted you to go because after he went to get the COVID shot, you guys were going to go to lunch. So there was this entire plan, and you know that he's a punctual person. You know this about him, and you did have plenty of time to prepare for that. So instead of fighting against that, like I told her, instead of saying, getting into the same argument, accept who he is. You know that he's a punctual person. So you had two choices. You either could have made sure that things, flowed smoothly as you already knew what his expectation was, or if that wasn't what you wanted to do, let that be known and not let it all fall apart closer to the end. I mean, that's a very simple example, but there's so many examples like that accepting who someone is or how a situation is helps you anticipate what's going to happen or what might happen, which ultimately can gauge your choices, your decisions. I know that this is my last example. I know that my partner, he doesn't like to travel. He does like to travel, but he doesn't like the process of traveling, like the getting ready and the actual flying and all that part, the logistics of it. Took me a little while to get to know that. And he would kind of be, I don't know, he'd have kind of like a little attitude. And at first, I didn't like that, of course. I'm like, what's your problem? We're going away. Like, this is a great time. Why are you in this? Why are you being moody? Whatever it is. I went through that a few times. And the only person, it didn't change. I will say one thing about him, it didn't waver. And no matter how I tried to phrase it or prepare for things, or he still was moody. And there was a point that I just had to accept and say, you know what? He's uncomfortable with the logistics part of traveling. It's just something that he doesn't like. There's nothing I can do to make him feel more secure as far as the hustle and bustle of, getting everything together and getting to the airport and flying and where we're staying, places that we've never been before. That is something that makes him anxious. I learned I had to sit back and stop that, the hope or trying to bring him over to my side to make him more comfortable with it, and just accept that this is something that he doesn't enjoy. He doesn't enjoy that part of it. So I can anticipate that better. I know not to be sensitive in those moments. I know where to keep my energy so that my energy doesn't get brought down by his anxious state. And when I tell you, it has made a world of difference, because I understand where he's at. I met him there. And again, I decided that it's something that is 100% worth it for me to deal with and to stick with. And from there, I knew how to handle it better because I accepted it for what it is. So I hope that this resonates with you. Again, I love all of the input, all of the feedback. I love all the stories you share with me. I have a few new things coming up, and I'm really excited to share them with you. So please, please, please stick with me. And, until next time, just remember, you have everything you need to be successful.